Well, carol number 3 in this series, and it's Hark, the Herald Angels Sing. It's once again by Charles Wesley, John Wesley's brother, that 18th child of the Wesley family from Epworth in Lincolnshire, who, together with his brother, of course, were founders of the Methodist movement in the UK and eventually across the world. Charles Wesley writes this hymn amongst his 6,500 other hymns, writes this hymn as 10 verses of 4 lines. Hark the Herald Angels Sing. We've always sung it, I've always sung it as 8 lines in a verse rather than 4 lines, but he writes it as 10 verses of 4 lines. Which makes 40 lines. And we've got 3 verses of 8 lines, which makes 24 lines. So there's a whole 16 lines that have been wiped out by history at some point in time. You might like to hear some of those lines. Here we are. Now display thy saving power. This is another verse. Now display thy saving power, ruined natures now restore. Now in music union join, thine to ours and ours to thine. Let us thee, though lost, regain, thee the life, the inner man. Oh, to all thyself impart, formed in each believing heart. Not sure that I was necessarily enthusiastic sufficiently enough to put that in the next edition, whenever the next edition comes out of a hymn book that contains Hark the Herald Angels Sing. I think the 3 verses that we got hang together very, very well indeed. And it's an interesting hymn because it's not like O Little Town or Silent Night or Away in a Manger, which really just tell a story. This is one that contains a body of theology. I used to know a Methodist minister who, when he was asked on one occasion by somebody training to be a local preacher in the Methodist church, where can I find what Methodists believe? She actually used to say, just read the hymns in the hymn book. And that's because a lot of them, particularly Wesleyan hymns, aren't just story. They are story with theology, with what Christians believe. So this one, you don't immediately feel that there's a story going on, but it's a theological story. It all breaks forth, not just the event at Bethlehem, but it breaks forth into how it has affected the whole cosmos. So, Charles wrote this in 1739, at least it was published in 1739, but finalised, as it were, with the other verses knocked out, finalised in 1861 and appeared in Ancient and Modern, Hymns Ancient and Modern then. So it's over 130 years later before it actually gets solidified into what we sing today. And when Charles wrote it, the first line, I mean, we know it, don't we? Hark the herald angels sing, glory to the newborn King. But that's not what he wrote. That's not what he wrote for his first 2 lines. His first 2 lines were, hark how all the welkin rings, glory to the King of Kings. Now you might wonder what a welkin is. Well, the answer is heaven or sky. So you could put the word heaven in there nowadays because welkin is not something that we use very often. So hark how all the heaven rings, glory to the King of Kings. That's how it started. But it changed, and it changed by other people editing it and adapting it and so on, eventually to Hark the Herald Angels Sing. Now, what about the tune? Well, you've had all these other hymns and carols that we've been looking at, but this particular one has one tune. There are a handful of others, but in more than 1,200 hymn books, it is placed against this particular tune, and it is Mendelssohn. You know it. Probably know it a lot better than I can play it, but it's Mendelssohn. It actually comes from one of the Mendelssohn's oratorio. I'm looking at this because I've got to try and pronounce something that's German. Festgesang. It's the second chorus of Felix Mendelssohn's Festgesang, published in 1840. That's another thing, isn't it? Tune written 100 years after the hymn was originally written, so presumably it was sung as a 4-lined verse hymn originally, rather than an 8-line verse. But there we are, it's worked into that. And you think to yourself, well, did Mendelssohn actually write this for this? No way. This Festgesang was an oratorio written to celebrate the invention of the printing press. Wow, isn't it amazing how you can take something out of something completely different, add it to a set of wonderful words, and you come up with something complete that you weren't expecting. It's almost like that kind of God incidences or coincidences that God seems to put together sometimes, which just makes something into it works. And listen to the words just for a moment. Hark, the herald angels sing glory to the newborn King. That's story. Peace on earth and mercy mild, God and sinners reconciled. That's not story. That's theology. God and sinners reconciled. It's prime theology. Joyful, all you nations, rise. That's not really story again. Join the triumph of the skies. This is acclamation. This is praise. This is tremendous. With the angelic host proclaim, Christ is born. We're back into story in Bethlehem. And then Christ by highest heaven adored, Christ the everlasting Lord. Late in time, behold him come. It's almost as though it's a complaint that it was so late in time. Not a complaint at all. It is, actually there are scriptural references. If you look closely, I think there are something like 10 scriptural references, 8 scriptural references to this in this hymn. So Charles Wesley, his knowledge of the Bible was tremendous, and so he picks bits out you don't even know as you're going through them. You struggle to find them, but you don't even know that he's putting the Bible into music and poetry at this point, but he is. Christ by highest heaven adored, Christ the everlasting Lord, late in time behold him come, offspring of a virgin's womb. You recognize these words surely from the Old Testament. Hail the incarnate deity. Look at that. Eh? Hail the incarnate deity. This is the God become man, the incarnation at Christmas. That's what we talk about. Pleased as man with man to dwell. And that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to become man. How can you imagine God becoming man, becoming a human being? What a rotten thing to have to do. But that's what he wanted to do because he loved us. Jesus, our Emmanuel. This absolute classic bit of theology that says that it is not just Jesus was a good man, but that Jesus was God. and comes and dies on a cross. It's God who is dying on a cross. I cannot believe how wonderful that thing is, that story, that event is. It's the fulcrum of Christian life, that God dies on a cross to show how much God loves the world. God loved the world so much that. And that's what he's talking about here. Hail the heaven-born Prince of Peace. Hail the Son of Righteousness. I mean, these words, Prince of Peace, Son of Righteousness, you find them scattered, scriptural references throughout the whole of the Bible here. Light and life to all he brings. Two real elements. I'm the light of the world, says Jesus. Anyone who wants life, let him come to me. You'll have life in abundance. Risen with healing in his wings. So we have a reference to the resurrection. We have a reference to the changing of the world as a result of what happened on the cross. Mild he lays his glory by, prepared to put all this aside in order for this to happen. Born that man no more may die, born to raise the sons of earth, born to give them second birth. There's a bit of theology there. Hey, we've got the picture of you need to be born again, says Jesus. And that second birth coming out of that particular story and scriptural reference. Born to raise the sons of earth, born to give them second birth. Interestingly, of course, Charles Wesley writes at a time when you use the word man, you are referring to humankind. When you are using the word sons of earth, you're referring to sons and daughters of earth. And language has changed since the 1730s in a dramatic way. Obviously, we're not using welkin anymore, but equally, in most hymn writers don't use man, don't use he for God, and don't use sons, but use what is now much more inclusive language whenever possible. So there we are. Hark the herald angels sing. Absolutely classically wonderful carol, because it's not only story, it's got the deep theology of what Christianity is really about.